Thank you. Those of you who laughed, you all get bonus points with the big guy. I've got 6 o'clock on the button now, so we're going to begin. If you've got, we're beginning again with Mincha. So this is still like regular weekday prayers. We have a little bit. When we're done with Mincha, we'll put our talit on and begin the Kol Nidre service. So we're on page 332. We're good? Great. I've never asked a film crew if we were live before, but I guess we're good. That's exciting. We begin on page 332 with Ashrei. Ashrei Shevetecha, Hodalu Chasela, Shem Shkachalo, Shem Shanai Lav, Tel David. Teilat Adonai Rapiv V'Rekol Basar Shem Kol Shel Elam Va'ed V'nach Nvarach Ya Me'atav Yarolam Hallelujah. Please rise. Yegadav Yegadav Shemei Rabbah Yamad Yivrach Yerutei V'yamlich Machutei B'chayochon V'mechon V'chay Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agalav Zman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Almaya Yitbarach V'ishtabach V'itba'ar V'jram V'naseh V'itadar V'italev V'italav Shmei D'Kudesha B'richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechamata Ta'amiram B'yalma V'imru Amen. We begin the Amidah together on page, on the next page, 334. Adonai sevata tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei avoteinu Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak v'Elokei Yaakov. האל הגדול הגיבור ונורא אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים וגונה יעקב וזוכר חסדי אבות ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה זוכרנו לחיים מלך חפץ בחיים וכותבנו בספר החיים למען אלוהים חיים מלך עוזר ומושיע מגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיים מתים את הרב להושיע מחוקר חיים בחסד מחיים מתים ברחמים רבים סומך כנפים ורופא חולים מתיר אסורים ומקיים אמרתו שני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה מי כמוך אב הרחמים זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים נאמן אתה לחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים נגדי ששמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו למתן ברוך יאמרו ברוך אדוני ממקומו דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם מלכתו לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך לנצח נצחים כשרך נקדיש ושפך אלוהינו יפיל מושל עולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש. We continue privately with the Silent Amidah. Again, we're in the weekday Amidah and we get a first taste of the Al Chaitz and the Ashamnu. We continue through page 438. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen. Kaddish Shalem is on page 340, page 340. Yegada v'gada shemei rabba bi'alma divrach yirutei v'emlich malchutei b'chayachon uv'mechon v'chay d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kari v'yemeru amen. Yeshmei rabba mevarach le'olam yalmei maya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitram v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitалал shmei d'kudesha בריחו לאלה, לאלה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירם בעלמה ויאמרו אמן. תקבל צלותון ובאותון דחו ישראל קדם אבוהון ושמיה ויאמרו אמן. יש להם רבי מן שמיה וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום מרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום וחת היום מהשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד, אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad. Kadisha Tov Mourner's Kaddish is on page 342. I'll ask those in mourning or observing yahrzeit to remain standing. Those reciting the Kaddish 342. Yit gadal ve'yit gadash shemei rabach bi'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayachon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala ubizman kariv imru amen. Yesh mei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lalmei u'maya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha b'richu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yesh lama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom emromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We are It's 6:12, which means we have 8 minutes till Kol Nidre. So I really need like 4 minutes of you guys talking to yourself. So we're going to hang out because I was a little faster davener than we planned for. I started on time, always a dangerous thing. So 4 minutes, talk to the people 12 feet away from you, wave hi. People you're sharing your row with. You got 4 minutes more to apologize if there's someone on your list. I don't know what's going on in the row back there, but it looks pretty fun. Did anyone have anything really good for the pre-fast dinner? What'd you say? Short ribs. Ooh, you got me beat. That's good. Some barbecue chicken. What'd you guys have? Burnt chicken. You got to get it just right. It's hard to burn it just right. Anyone else? I had barbecue chicken and roast potatoes. It was delicious. There was also broccoli that I ate because apparently I'm an adult. Any takers? Okay. It is a little warm, but I hear the air on, so hopefully that will continue. Or Addison can fan us all. Thank you. Ari Chaskis, nice to have you in town for more than a minute at a time. Thanks for hanging out. I can't tell if it means I need new glasses or everyone's just really far away, but past Blum, I'm only convinced there are people back there. Who you are, I cannot see. Hope you're doing okay. Great. If you guys at home are still eating, way to use every minute. Make sure you drink some water. One more minute. Okay. So a quick word about the talit, and then we'll say the blessing and put it on. The mitzvah of the talit has nothing to do with all of the beautiful talitot we have and the wonderful fabrics. Some are small, some are large. The mitzvah is the tzitzit, the tassels at the end, which, if you heard me, by the way, these are often translated as fringes. There's a pet peeve of mine. These are clearly tassels and not fringes. It's confusing because a lot of them have these things, which I think are fringes on the side, but this is a tassel. This is not related to Yom Kippur, just a pet peeve of mine. These tzitzit in the Torah, it says to have them on every garment to remind you of to do right. And so because you're supposed to look at them and remember, the mitzvah is only during the daytime that you need them, except for one day of the year. And it is the beginning, really the first step in a process on Yom Kippur where we forgo the physical. The fact that we're fasting, for most of us, besides Paul and I, have not kicked in yet. Likely we're still full from dinner. Hopefully we got enough burnt chicken down to feel full. But we put these on tonight as a way of saying it doesn't matter now if the sun is out, if it's morning or if it's night. It doesn't matter all of the regular needs and all of the ways we usually organize ourselves. For the next 25 hours, we are only this. We are only our souls, because we are going to try and focus only on that to make them as whole and as ready for another year to come as possible. The Shulchan Aruch recommends the best way to put on a talit is A, if one person says the blessing and everyone else answers Amen, and B, that afterwards you wrap your whole self in it. In fact, it says while a talit, any four-cornered garment, will do, it's best if it's large enough to wrap a 9-year-old child up in your talit. In a different world, I would look for a 9-year-old and have them come up and wrap them up in my talit. We'll just have to imagine. Which is why you'll see right after I cite the bracha, I wrap my whole head in it. And if you have the time and the space, I would encourage you to do the same thing, because it's a way of starting the separating between what comes before and what comes after. So if you haven't put your talit on yet, now is when we're going to do it. And if you'd like to join in, you can take it off and put it back on. We'll hold it out in front of us, and I say the bracha, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kishan B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu Lihita Teif Batzitzit. Nailed it. Okay, we rise as the ark is opened. We're on page 350.
I'll take one.
Kol Nidre begins with Beshiva Shalmala on page 352.
Beshiva Shalmala, Uveshiva Shalmata, Aledata Mahakum, Vialedata Kahala, Anumatirin, Lehibala, Im Havaryanim B'yeshiva Shalmala Uv'yeshiva Shalmata Aledata Makom V'aledata Kahal Anumatirin Leibalal Im Havaryanim.
By authority of the court on high and by authority of this court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we hereby declare that it is permitted to pray with those who have transgressed. Join me in where it says all vows and read with me. All vows and oaths we take, all promises and obligations we make to God between this Yom Kippur and the next, we hereby publicly retract in the event that we should forget them, and hereby declare our intention to be absolved of them. Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre V'yasarei V'charamei וכל עמי וכינויי וכינוסי שבועות תנדרנה שדבנה ודהיה חרמנה ונאסרנה על נפשתנה מיום כיפורים זד יום כיפורים אבל ינוח לטובה כלהון איחרד נבהון כלהון יהון שרון שוויקין שוויתין בתהילין ומבוטלין לשרירין ולקיימין נדרנה נדרי ויסרנה לא אסרי ושבועתנה לשבות. כל נדרי ויסרי וחרמי וקונמי וכינויי וכינוסי שבועות תנדרנה ונשנבנה ודהיה חרמנה ונאסרנה על נפשתנה מיום כיפורים זד יום כיפורים אבל ינוח לטובה kalona ekarat naveyahona kalona yehone sharan Shivikina Shivitina Metailina Umevutalina La sharin velakayamin Nidre la Nidre vesarana la vesare Ushivotana la shevut. Kol niderehi ve'esarehi v'charamehi ve'konamehi ve'chinuyei ve'kinusei shevut dinedarna ureyeyeshnabana Udeya karimena Verasarena Alenafshatona Miyom Kippurim Ad Yom Kippurim Abalenu letoma kalona ekarat navehona kalona yehone sharan Shivikina Shivitina Metailina Umevutalina La sharin velakayamin Nidre la Nidre vesarana la vesare Shavuotana Lashavot V'nislach l'chol b'nei Yisrael v'lagir Hagar b'tocham ki l'cholam bishgaga
V'nislach l'chol b'nei Yisrael l'ger Hagar b'tocham ki l'cholam bishgaga.
Slachina l'om l'vzeh k'god l'chazek v'kshenasat l'om z'mitzrayim b'areina v'sham nemar v'yomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh 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 lazman hazeh lazman hazeh lazman hazeh lazman hazeh hazeh Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu zman hazeh Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu zman hazeh Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu zman hazeh Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu zman hazeh Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh lazman hazeh
Amen. You may be seated. Yasher Koach, the cantor. That is Kol Nidre is one of the most difficult pieces of music to sing of the year, as it is, as equal to as powerful it is. But to sing with a mask on is triply impressive. We're very glad you did not pass out. It is my privilege and honor to call up our president, Ellen Feit.
Thank you, Rabbi. Cantor, don't pass out, but if you do, I got you covered. So part of the reason I was nervous about being president was being up here speaking with you. I hate public speaking. You may have heard about the sympathetic nervous system responses to stress, better known as the fight or flight response. Heart racing, blood pressure elevated, that's me right now. The rabbi had been alluding to General Hospital, my favorite soap opera, back in the day when I had the time and energy to watch TV. Truth be told, I never wanted to be an actress on General Hospital, but rather my dream job was to be the medical writer for the show, staying behind the scenes and making sure that in every scene, every line that was uttered would be medically accurate. Well, my own medical school, residency, and real life got in the way of that dream, so here I am, living this dream. And although I am terrified to be speaking to all of you, I have something to say, and I hope you will all listen. When I envisioned being president, especially at the high holidays, I couldn't wait to greet you at the door and hug or kiss you when you came up to the Ark for your Aliyah. I couldn't wait to hear about the births that occurred since last year. I specifically remember some families at the high holidays last year were expecting grandchildren. Many families were sending kids off to college for the first time or had 2-year-olds starting nursery once again. Some of you unfortunately suffered losses, and I knew I wanted to hug you and hear how you were managing. After all, you were all there for me when I suffered the devastating and sudden loss of my beloved father 9 years ago. You collectively embraced me, and I wanted and looked forward to giving back. But then COVID. We were forced to shut our doors on March 16th, to be exact, a little more than 1 month into my presidency. No one knew what to expect, what had hit us. Would we be shut down for 2 weeks, 1 month, the entire summer? All unknown. No religious school or early childhood education in person. No one coming into the admin offices. Families couldn't have funerals with anyone in attendance to help them mourn. For burials, you were asked to bring your own shovel. Suddenly, Zoom shivas were a thing. All of our scheduled bar and bat mitzvah services and celebrations were postponed. A Brit Milah was performed on Zoom. Pretty weird, but we Jews are nothing if not creative. And here we are now on Kol Nidre, the holiest night of our Jewish calendar, still in the middle of this pandemic. No one could have predicted that. But what's remarkable is that we are here in our synagogue in the middle of the pandemic. I do not want to minimize the effects that coronavirus had and continues to have on our country, our state, Long Island, and our towns. Over 200,000 Americans have lost their lives due to COVID. Over 32,000 New Yorkers died, and over 2,200 deaths in Nassau County have been attributed to COVID-19. Our own synagogue has lost several members directly due to COVID, and many of our members have lost their own family members and friends. No one has been left unscathed. Woodbury Jewish Center was not spared either, and COVID forced us to go virtual. But from the minute we had to shut down in March, when we had to close down in-person education, cancel our beloved Purim Carnival, and halt in-person minyanim, Shabbat, and holiday services, all meetings, and literally close our doors, we sprang into action. We began Zoom programming and services almost immediately, bringing Shabbat and the holidays into the homes of those comfortable enough to Zoom. Although the Purim Carnival was canceled, the rabbi performed a one-man Purim spiel that received over 1,000 views on Facebook Live. For Passover, Rabbi and Cantor recorded services, songs, and a mock Seder for us to enjoy from the safety of our own homes. Rabbi and Cantor were deployed to call you, our congregants, to check on you and make sure you knew we were there for you during these terrible times. Bar and bat mitzvah lessons continued virtually with the Cantor. New programs sprung up that I will mention more about tomorrow, and I will thank everyone who worked tirelessly to help us stay connected with you. As the months of quarantining progressed, we got a better handle on how coronavirus was transmitted and how to protect ourselves. When other synagogues around us continued to only live stream or Zoom Shabbat services, we came together on a Shabbat morning, June 20th, for the first time. And with a lot of trepidation, we sat here in this sanctuary and celebrated Shabbat together. I did have to twist some arms to come, but we had exactly 10 participants, a minyan, sitting here 12 feet apart and masked. And I won't lie, when we finally heard our voices live, singing together, and not through a Zoom box, many of us were brought to tears. We were, and still are, one of the few synagogues to reopen for Shabbat services, albeit on a small, public health-informed scale, but because we did so successfully, guests from other synagogues have asked to join in. This had to be the first step as we had our eye on the high holy days. We had to figure out how to safely and traditionally worship Shabbat, and then figure out how to pray safely together for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But we did it, and now we are in our building together and live streaming along with those at home. Again, I have so many people to thank for their extraordinary efforts, and I will do so tomorrow. The next step in our renewal was how to manage a simcha. Would families continue to postpone their b'nai mitzvah? How can a simcha family just have their own immediate family and close friends in attendance to keep within social distancing and maximal capacity guidelines? What about the party? This is the part that gives me the greatest hope and the reason Woodbury Jewish Center will not just survive, but thrive, l'dor vador, from generation to generation, for our children. If we teach them well, if we instill in them the meaning of being a Jew, we will be okay. So we did in fact celebrate the first bar mitzvah under strict pandemic guidelines in July. There would be no kiddush here or a party after, and there were no additional family or friends in attendance. It was just the Fine family, our clergy, and me. Watching the faces of Jesse's parents with so much determination, love, and pride in their eyes as Jesse sang, and the visible tears when their son chanted his Haftorah, that captured the essence of what a bar mitzvah really is. It wasn't about the party. It was about him standing here at the bima, like his siblings, parents, and grandparents did before him, accepting his role as a Jewish adult as his forefathers had done for generations, and only with his immediate family to bear witness. In spite of the hardship and disappointment of not having the bar mitzvah day he had dreamed of, it was a heartfelt and intimate day that Jesse, his family, and I will never forget. This is why WJC needs to be here, to teach our children, to help instill in them the meaning of a Jewish education, of what it means to persevere, to overcome, and to stand tall and proud, l'dor vador, from generation to generation. Despite our efforts to keep us all connected, Woodbury Jewish Center, like all synagogues, nonprofits, and for-profit businesses, large and small, have taken a huge hit financially, secondary to COVID, and the slumping economy around us. Regal caterers canceled or postponed all their parties, and we lost out on their projected income. In the spring, when we had to shut in-person schooling, we offered virtual religious school and early childhood education, but we needed to furlough the assistant teachers and some administrative staff in order to even cover the rest of payroll. And then early childhood families, understandably, requested relief from us. It is very hard to keep school-age children and even adults engaged virtually, but nearly impossible to run a program for 2-, 3-, and 4-year-olds only through Zoom, Facebook, or YouTube. Thanks to the extraordinary efforts of our extremely skilled treasurer, Kara Goldstein, and her finance committee of Jeff Steinberg and Rami Abada, in consultation with Stu Mayer and Lance Cuba, we successfully applied for the Payroll Protection Program and as well received a loan modification from our mortgage lender. While these actions are keeping us temporarily afloat with the ongoing pandemic and restrictions on in-person meetings, celebrations, and fundraising events, we are hurting. The catering industry has been hit very hard. They are restricted from holding more than 50-person gatherings without significant penalty financially and medically. So we have to be creative to make up the funds that we normally raise from our traditional gala and from the lack of fundraising events we normally hold year-round. We will plan a virtual gala, we will do smaller events, but that's not enough to sustain us until we can safely and fully open up. And regardless of our finances, we had to start opening up safely to meet our religious obligations to you, our congregants, and to teach our future, to begin religious school instruction and early childhood education for our littlest ones. So I'm happy to share that since Jesse's inaugural bar mitzvah during COVID, we have held several bar and bat mitzvah services and 2 afrafs, and no one leaves without sheer joy in their hearts. The persistence of the children who have worked so hard for their special day, the resolve of the future groom and bride to have their traditional aliyah, COVID won't stop them, and it won't stop us. These simchas have been our renewal of sorts, reminding us what it means to have a Jewish celebration. It's not about the party, it's about the connection with God, with religion, and with our roots. Speaking of roots, I ask all our founding members to please stand up. Even if you are praying with us from home, please stand up. Look around. These are our founding families. These are our roots. The uncertainty of starting a synagogue with no clergy, no building, no school, that did not deter this group. Your conviction, your determination, your stamina, We owe this building to you, and we will not let COVID or anything else prevent us from soaring to even greater heights. To keep our legacy strong, you have carried us through growing pains, expansions, catering issues, school issues, clergy changes, and yet here we stand. Mark Anish, our first president, said, "If we build it, they will come," and come we did. For Mark, for all the founding members, for all the past presidents and past administrative and executive boards, we carry the synagogue on to the next generation. They have passed the torch to us, to lead, to carry on, l'dor v'ador. We will not let you down. You can be seated. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Every president asks for money, and every president thanks you for giving, then asks you for more. But I am asking you for even more than that. Please keep this 3-decade dream of a soaring Woodbury Jewish Center alive. COVID has pushed us down, but we are fiercely fighting to come back up. We must not listen to others who say, "I'll take a year off. I can't come into the building anyway. What does Woodbury Jewish Center do for me now?" I say we are here for you in good times and in bad times, to celebrate simchas and to mourn losses. I thank you all who supported us now by renewing your membership. It is you who realize the importance of supporting the Jewish community and supporting Woodbury Jewish Center. In fact, Rabbi Fruit Handler is starting us off. He is making the first live pledge of our Kol Nidre appeal tonight of $5,000. I thank you, Rabbi, Jesse, Liba, and Micah, for sacrificing so much of your income, your time, and your energy for Woodbury Jewish Center. We are truly blessed to have you lead us these last few years and into the very long and fruitful future ahead. And I ask you all, I beg you, if you haven't done so already, please consider giving as generously as the Fruit Handler family has done tonight. My children, Justin and Lisa, newly married and crazy busy in the city, surprised me and gave a beautiful online donation, even before my appeal. And when I cried from joy and a bit of guilt and asked him why he gave so much, Justin answered, "The temple has meant a lot and done a lot for us in the last 6 months, and we appreciate how hard you have worked to make the experience as normal as possible." L'dor v'ador. My son Ryan said he'd wait to make a donation until he sees how well or not my appeal sounds, but I'm guessing he won't be outdone by his brother and sister-in-law. My son Brandon said, and I quote, "I have no money, but yeah, you can pledge anything on my behalf and then pay for it yourself." So I beg you, l'dor v'ador, we must be here for the next generation. They want it, they are demanding it, and we must deliver. From nursery school to the chuppah, from Long Island to Florida, from Manhasset and the Hamptons to Woodbury, from young adulthood to retirement and beyond, we are here for you. I beg you for your additional financial support now so we can continue to be here for you for decades to come. Wishing you all a safe and sweet new year. May we all be inscribed for a happy, peaceful, and safe life. Gamar Hatima Tova.
Shkoch Ellen, beautiful speech, Gamar Hatima Tova. You shouldn't be too thankful for our pledge. I'm taking it out of Micah's allowance. Thank you very much. We're going to continue with the Mariv service, which is found on page 360 in our book. Page 360, we rise for Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam
may be seated. We continue at the bottom of 360.
ומעביר יום מי ולילה ומבדיל בין יום ולילה אדוני צבאות שמו אלוהי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני תסיר ממנו דלמים ברוך אתה אדוני Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malechuto Leolam Evahed, V'yahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavcha, V'chol nafshecha, ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בעיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
We'll continue privately, bottom of 362 and to the middle of 364.
Adonai Elohechem emet. Umalchuto beratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe uvenei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam v'chamocha b'hilim Adonai v'kamocha nedar b'kodesh Nora Batilot Osefela Malchutcha Harvanecha V'Kehayem Lifnei Moshe Zelianu V'Yameru Adonai Meloch Leolam Evoed V'Nehem Arkifat Haned Yaakov Gelahom Yechazak Bimenu Baruch Atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Ufaros aleinu sukat shlomecha Baruch atah Adonai Hapore sukat shalom aleinu V'yale kol amo Yisrael V'yale Yerushalayim.
Amen. We rise on page 368 at the top of the page in the black, 368.
Ki vayom hazeh yichaper aleichem letaher edechem mikol chatoteichem livnei Adonai tideharu yiregadal v'kadash shemei rabba beyom adivarach irutei v'yamlich malechutei v'chayechon uv'yamechon v'chayechon beit Yisrael Bagal bizman karev veimeru amen yesh meirav mevorach leolam leolem leolmaya yirvarach vishavach vipar vidrom vidase vidadar vidale vitalash merusha berichu liela liela mikol birchad v'shirata tushmechata v'nechemata Damiram yama veimeru amen.
The Yom Kippur evening Amidah is said privately 370 through 382. It is the beginning of our formal confessions, 370 through 382. If you haven't finished your private prayers, you should take your time and finish at whatever pace you feel comfortable. If you have finished, you may be seated. We are blessed each year to have the Ya'aleh, the service literally called Uplifting, the prayer led by someone who helped this synagogue come into existence, by Boris Charton. Obviously, coming in was not really in the cards for this particular Yom Kippur, so he pre-recorded both his story and his prayer, which we'll now see on the screens, and those at home you'll be able to watch now.
Before I begin, I want to thank Rabbi Friedlander, the cantor, for allowing me to be included in the prayers of Kol Nidre, the day of the holiest day of the year. So thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, cantor. I also want to thank our president, which is working so hard to make this happen for all of our congregants. Alan, you are a real trooper. And you are in a position of president at this special time. So too, on behalf of myself, my family, I want to thank you and thanks to the whole congregation. In 1942, I found myself in a forest with approximately 300 Jews, men, women, children, very deep in the forest, and it was Yom Kippur night called Nidre. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Hamelin, which was my teacher, my mentor as a young boy, came up to me before Kol Nidre, and he said, I want you to do that prayer. And there also the forest told us that this was Rabbi Moses Steinberg, the rabbi from Brody. I said maybe Rabbi Steinberg should do it. And Levi Yitzchak said, no, I want you to do it. So we proceeded. We did not have too many prayer books, but the rabbi handed me his prayer book. It was at dusk, and we were very deep in the forest. We could not light a fire because the Nazis would see the smoke. So we kept kerosene lamps we had down low so we can read from the book. And I stepped up, trembling, and I says, Rabbi, if you think I could do it, I'll do it for you and for the people here. And that's a very meaningful prayer to Yahweh. It goes like this. It's got a special tune. Yahweh, Yahweh, Tachnunenu Meirah, Veyavoy, Veyavoy, Shabotenu Miboika, Veyeroah, Veyeroah, Renaneno, Ad, Ora, Yahweh, Yahweh, Kolenu Meirah, Veyavoy, Veyavoy, Tzedkutenu, Miboika, Veyeroah, Vereyu, Fedionenu, Ad, Ora, Yahweh, 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 Yahweh,
ויבואי סליחוסנו מפויך וירו נקותנו עד אורה יהווה מנוסיינו מהרה ויבואי למענוי מבויך וירו חיפורנו עד אורה יהווה ישנו מהרה יהווה ישנו מהרה ויבואי תורנו מבויך וירו חנוננו עד אורה יהווה לזכרוננו מהרה ויבואי ויודענו מבויך וירו הדרותינו עד אורה יהווה לתוכנו מהרה ויבואי אלינו מבויך וירו וקשותינו עד אורה יעלה כוסנו מהרה ויבואי אליכו מבויך וירו אלינו עד אורה צדק ומשפט בכל כיסחו חסד ומשקת בפונכו אשר ירדכם תקסוד בבית אלוהים נהלך ורוגד אשר לא יאמרו עשו ויבשת יודוף יצרו אשר בידו נפש כל חוי ורוח וסור אוי הנשמה והגיף כולו חוסו על עמולו אוי הנשמה והגיף שלו אדוני עשה למען שמחו ותונו על שמך אדוני עשה למען שמחו בעבור כבוד שמחו כי יחנן ורחם שמחו למען שמך אדוני וסלחתו לעווננו כי רב הוא. I do want to say to the congregation, I will miss you all, but you're in my heart and my mind. And I thank you for willing to listen to the prayer that I just made. It's on behalf of all of you included. And I hope next year we shall be together and saying that same prayer, remembering our people, our children, our grandchildren that have been slaughtered and burned. Shana Tova, Ksiva v'Chsima Tova.
Amen. A privilege and an honor each year to hear that story and that prayer. We rise now on page 392 for the attributes of God that we hope will be employed to forgive us and allow us to reach a new and better year.
Adonai, Adonai, Erachum v'chanun, Erech Apayim, v'rav chesed v'yemet, Notzer chesed la'alafim, Nosei avon v'afesha v'chata v'nakeh, V'salachta lavoneinu lechatatenu nechaltanu, Slach lanu avinu kechatanu, Mechalanu malekenu keifashanu, Ki ata Adonai tov esalach, Ki ata Adonai tov esalach, v'rav chesed lechol korecha, v'rav chesed lechol korecha.
We remain standing as the ark is opened on 394, Kihine Kachomer.
Kihine kachomer b'yad hayotzer, Birtzot marchi birtzot mekater, Kehina nachnu b'yadecha chesed, Notzer labrit habet, labrit habet, labrit habet, v'altefen lahayetzer, ki hinei ka'even b'yad ha'mesahatet, v'rtzoto chez v'tzot mechatet, kehina nachnu v'yadecha mechayeh, u'memotet, labrit habet, labrit habet, labrit habet, v'altefen lahayetzer, ki hinei Hagar zem b'yadecha rash, birtzoto dibek lior v'tzoto v'rash, kehina nachnu v'yadecha tomech, ani v'arash, labrit habet, labrit habet, labrit habet, v'altefen lahayetzer.
You may be seated. First, to those of you watching at home, we apologize. Apparently, our parent website, Shul Cloud, has gone down perhaps across the country. I don't know if they're back up, but we did send another way for everyone to watch via email. So if you are watching and you know someone who might not be able to and are able to shout out the window to the house next door and let them know, please do. Additionally, we're going to do our best to have a recording available as soon as possible so that any parts of the service you missed, you can still join in asynchronously. If Yom Kippur is about anything, it is about reminding that so much of the world is outside of our control. Okay, now I'm starting, so let's, transition. There we go. Shana Tova! Oh, good crowd. I didn't hear anything from you guys, though. I don't know. Gemara Chatima Tova. The last 2 years, I went back and looked over some of my sermons from the past High Holy Days. And the first year, I gave a sermon about who I thought you were, who I thought this community was. And then the second year, last year, I gave another sermon about who, now that I really knew you, who we were. And I thought I was going to leave that theme behind. And then on March 16th, we closed our doors. And we've been asking ever since, who are we? If we are not the place with open doors, the home base where we can gather in Mass when we want to celebrate or mourn, who are we? And I think perhaps many of us have been asking this question as well, as our lives have been turned upside down. As all the rules of how we act, what we do, what we prioritize have been thrown into question, I think that perhaps for the last 6 months we've been asking ourselves, who am I? Who are we? And as I approached the High Holy Days and looked at our Torah and Haftarah readings again, I realized that I think the heroes of our stories, our ancestors, were asking the same question. Hagar and Ishmael, Hannah and Abraham as he took Isaac up that mountain. Each of them faced unimaginable and unexpected difficulties. Each of them thought they knew who they were and the path they were on, and confronted something sudden that turned everything upside down. But each of them found a way to dig deep and find strength and resilience. Additionally, over the last 6 months, I've seen the way in which our synagogue has tried to answer that question. I've heard from countless people over the phone or with guests on my wind down, who are we? First, the story of Hagar and Ishmael. Hagar thought she knew who she was. She was the handmaid of Sarah, the concubine of Abraham, and the mother of Ishmael. But suddenly it became clear that she could not be the handmaid of Sarah. She could not be the concubine of Abraham. She and Ishmael had to leave, but at least she had that I am Ishmael's mother. She journeyed into the wilderness, and it became clear that they did not have enough food and water, and Ishmael was going to die. And she thought to herself, am I even going to get to be Ishmael's mother? And she put him down and looked away. But in that moment, when she turned away, that's when an angel of God appeared to her and said, don't worry. You can look back. You can still find meaning and purpose and strength and connection. And she looked back, and indeed, she found a fountain, a spring in the wilderness, and somehow she made it work and was able to not just survive, but to thrive. It was that moment she was so burdened with pain and confusion and uncertainty that she looked away that gave her the strength to look back. Early on, when I began my wind-down program, I interviewed first responders. And I heard from 2 doctors. One senior in his career, one still a resident. The one who is the head of his department described spending all day, every day, intubating patient after patient, not knowing if they would ever get off the vent. He described the uncertainty, the pain, the confusion, because usually he's the one who makes sure they come back. That's his job. Who is he if he's not sure they will? And he described a moment in between when he had a brief second to breathe and he would go to a break room or to a small separate enclave where no one else was and peel away the layers of PPE. Maybe have a snack, drink of water. Once or twice he even tuned into our Zoom minions. And breathe. And in that strength, in that moment, he found resilience, the ability to turn back, the ability to say, I don't know for sure what to do, but I know I can do this, and I will keep trying, and I will keep working. The other doctor was a resident on his way to be a radiologist, and he said to me a sentence that has bounced around my head for the last 6 months. He said, I was redeployed to the ER, but I wasn't fully trained for that. He was told to be the doctor, the one who had the answers and said what to do, because that was all we could do. And he said, I wasn't fully trained for that. And he described saying, I didn't have a choice, so I took a deep breath. I put on my PPE, and I found myself as a doctor to do everything I could to be the support, to be as much of the answers I could find, to help as much as I could. He looked away for a moment and came back stronger and more resilient. On a much lighter note, I heard from a mom who wasn't supposed to be managing online learning, a mom who was supposed to spend the year maybe moving, planning a bat mitzvah, but not figuring out how to be teacher, how to be therapist to her kids through a pandemic. And she said, the way I'm able to function is for an hour every day before the kids wake up, I go to my exercise bike. And I bike hard. And for 1 hour, I look away, and that gives me the strength to look back. Hagar said, I don't know who I am, and looked away. And she answered, I am Ishmael's mother. And she looked back and made it work. Hannah had been told her whole life, your job is to become a mother. It's all she wanted. Not only to become a mother, but in fact, she married a good man, a leader in the community. And she was one of 2 wives, something I don't recommend for now, by the way. But it was hard because she had no children. But her sister wife, year after year, had another child and another child and another child. It was heartbreaking for her. So on their annual trip to Jerusalem for the festival, Hannah snuck away to the Holy of Holies, and with tears streaming down her face, in soft words said, please God, let me become a mother, let me have a child. Not only was her prayer answered, but the son she gave birth to became Samuel, Shmuel, the second greatest prophet in our tradition after Moses. She cried out. She asked for help. And she found it. I heard from a mom. I asked, how do you help your kids manage? How do you help your family? And she said, each night, before the kids go to sleep, one at a time, I sit on their bed. And I say with sincerity and honestly, how are you doing? How are you holding up? And sometimes the kids would answer, well, I really wanted chocolate ice cream, not vanilla ice cream. Mom, what's the matter with you? But sometimes they'd share, I'm not sure about the world. I don't know what to do. They would cry out. And in that space, they'd find some strength to wake up the next day and start again. I heard from a young woman, just had her bat mitzvah here in this sanctuary. And I asked her, what do you want the adults to know about everything that you're going through? And she said, and her shoulders got tense and tight, and she said, I wish they would understand just how hard it is to learn online. And she explained the difficulties of asynchronous learning and all of the things. And as she finished, I watched the tension a little bit go out of her shoulders. She cried out and found strength. Abraham. Abraham knew what he was doing. His job was to do what God says, to follow that path and establish the Jewish people. He knew what to do. He finally had his son Isaac. All was set. Isaac was going to be the next generation. And God says, take your son, your only son, the one you love. Take Isaac to a place that I will show you and slaughter him unto me. Imagine the crisis in Abraham's mind. That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to listen to God, but he's supposed to also raise Isaac. How could he do both? And he leans in and he says, my job is to do what God says. And for 3 days, they journey. He hikes with Isaac up the mountain. He ties Isaac to the altar. He lifts the knife. And thank God, before finishing the task, he looks up. He looks up and an angel of God appears. God comes down, God's self, and says, stop, Abraham. There's another way. And God gestures or directs Abraham's attention. In the bushes there is a ram, and they find another solution. It can be so consuming to think, I know who I am, I have to do exactly this. But the story of Abraham is telling us sometimes it can feel like there is only one way. But if we look up, we might be able to find another way. And Abraham was able to answer, who am I? I am the acolyte of God, and I am Isaac's father. So we are asking ourselves, who are we? We are the people that can pause and look away and come back even stronger. We are the people that will take time to cry out, to essay our pain and our anguish, and find resilience in it. We are the people who 6 months ago didn't know who we were all of a sudden. If we can't open our doors, what do we do? But we had Zoom services. Some congregants got together and said, who are we? We're the people who take care, and formed WJC Cares, raised money, and made sure first responders had a gift to know that we care. We are the people that when things seem impossible, we dig deep, we look up, and we find another way. Who is Woodbury Jewish Center? Woodbury Jewish Center is the synagogue, the community that is going to have the best 5781, the best year our synagogue, our community has ever seen, because we are the people that when things are impossible and difficult, we dig deep and we find strength, we find resilience, we find a way. Shana Tova. We continue now with Shema Kolenu on page 398. We rise, page 398.
Shema, Shema, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu. Shema, Shema, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu. Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel v'rachamim, uvratzon et tefilatenu.
Shema koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, chutz v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel b'rachamim v'ratzon et tefilatenu.
Ashiveinu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Tashlicheinu, ale tashlicheinu milfanecha, veruach kodshecha tikach mimenu.
Al tashlicheinu milfanecha, veruach kodshecha al tikach mimenu.
Ale tashlicheinu, li'etzigna, kichlot kocheinu, ale ta'azveinu.
Al tashlicheinu li'et zikna, ki chlod kocheinu, al ta'azveinu.
Yehiyu ratzon v'veinu v'goni v'levanecha l'tzureinu v'goleinu kilecha uchanu atatane Adonai Eloheinu.
We remain standing and we turn to Ashamnu on page 403. We ready our fist to proclaim once again our sins to God.
Ay, 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 Ashamenu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu, Dofi, ay, 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 Evinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafanu, Shaker, ay, 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 Yasnura, Kizabnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niyatsnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Tsararnu, Kishinu, Oreb, ay, 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 Rashanu, Shechadnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu.
We continue now on page 406. We begin together aloud and we'll conclude the end together on 408.
Alechei shechan al v'necha v'imutz alev alechei shechan al v'necha v'imtuhu itzvatayim alechei shechan V'yale kulam Eloah selichot Selach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu alechet shechatan v'necha v'chvat shochat v'achet shechan v'necha v'lishon arachet shechan. V'yale kulam Eloah selichot Selach lanu mechalanu kaper lanu.
We remain standing as the ark is opened on page 414 for Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu malkeinu chatan v'necha, Avinu malkeinu chatan v'necha. Avinu malkeinu hachsirnim b'shuv v'shalem levanecha. Avinu malkeinu shlach refuah shlema lechol yamecha.
Avinu malkeinu kadven b'sefer gula v'shua.
Avinu malkeinu zochrim b'zikron tov levanecha.
Avinu malkeinu zochrim b'zikron tov levanecha.
Avinu malkeinu kadven b'sefer chaim tovim.
Avinu malkeinu kadven b'sefer chaim tovim.
Avinu malkeinu kadven b'sefer gula v'shua.
Avinu malkeinu kadvenu b'sefer
Avinu malkeinu kadven b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala.
Avinu malkeinu kadvenu b'nasa v'chalkala.
Avinu malkeinu kadven b'sefer zichuyot.
Avinu malkeinu kadvenu b'sefer zechuyot.
Avinu malkeinu kadven b'sefer salicha umechila.
Avinu malkeinu kadvenu b'sefer slicha umechila. 4:16.
Avinu malkeinu chonenu v'hanenu. Avinu malkeinu chonenu v'hanenu ki ein banu maasim aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed ve'oshiyenu. Avinu malkeinu chonenu v'anenu. Avinu malkeinu chonenu v'anenu ki ein banu maasim aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed ve'hoshiyenu.
You may be seated. Last week, as Rosh Hashanah was about to begin, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. However you might feel about her politics or her choices or her decisions, as the rabbi who eulogized her said, she was born into a world where what she became was impossible. When she got to law school, the dean pulled her aside, as well as the other women, and say, "You took a man's spot. Tell me why that was worth it." In the end, she became the first woman and the first Jew to lie in state. Whatever it is you might feel, while I'm citing the words of Mourner's Kaddish, Justice Ginsburg will be in my heart. Kaddish Tom, Mourner's Kaddish is on page 422. I'll ask those in mourning, observing yard site, or reciting Kaddish to please rise. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shemei rabba, bi'alma divrach kirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lalmei u'maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May all those who mourn find some comfort amongst all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem, and let us say amen. Again, to those watching at home, we are not in control of everything, and if you had your service interrupted, we deeply apologize. We will do our best to have a recording available later tonight. Those of you who are here and present, thank you for joining us. We went a little longer than planned on, and I didn't get any rotten tomatoes thrown at me, so I appreciate that deeply. I'm wishing everyone a meaningful fast, a Gemar Chatima Tova, and have a good night. Shkoach, Cantor.